All right. Hi, I'm Tamara Cronus, and I'm here tonight with Colin Middleton. And we're both residents of Nanaimo on Vancouver Island. And we've partnered with Island Safety Watch to bring you this live Facebook broadcast from time to time, where we are going to talk about island public safety issues. And we want to thank Island Safety Watch for this partnership. Island Safety Watch, which Colin and I are both part of, is a group of island residents who are concerned about safety here on Vancouver Island. And we're happy to be here live with you to talk about what's going on the island in terms of safety, and to just sort of talk through the issues and how we feel about them. Now, Colin and I did our first broadcast just a few days ago, and a lot has happened since then. There was a big fire in Nanaimo on the weekend where 15 units are now out of commission for at least a year, displacing 20 people. And of course, UBCM started today. And Dr. Bonnie Henry had some words of encouraging patience on Vancouver Island, because in her words, arrests aren't going to help anybody in this toxic drug crisis. And there's also been, as of today, there are now restrictions around drug use near playgrounds, which is very, very welcome news for island residents. And of course, also here in Nanaimo, just a few hours ago, there was an announcement about funding for a new bus transit link in downtown Nanaimo. And I think, one of the reasons why these podcasts are important to us is it's getting harder and harder to sort of pass news around with links sort of not showing up on pages. So we wanted to talk about sort of some of those developments. And Colin, what else has been happening in Nanaimo, and how does it make you feel?
I'm exhausted and angry, really. I mean, to think that it was only 5 days ago that we did this last, and how much has happened in that time this fire that happened on the weekend this was really, truly our worst fears being realized. Like, all the fires that have been happening in downtown that have been set by people using drugs, like lighting up to inhale fentanyl with butane torches that are like, they have the safeties either tampered with or taken off, or they're not working. Like, there's been at least 4 businesses damaged. Thankfully, nobody, like, actually, and in one case, the drug user themselves got major burns, and we don't even know if they survived. I doubt we're ever going to hear whether or not they did or not.
Is this the incident last week where someone lit their pants on fire?
It wasn't last week. It was a couple weeks ago now. It was in that was the one at the Vancouver Island Convention Center. But yeah,
that's awful. Like, it is really, like, burns are a horrible, horrible thing.
And I don't know if we'll ever know whether or not that individual survived or not. I mean, because all these things keep happening and you never actually hear what the outcome is. So we hear something happen, then it all goes dark. And even though sometimes these are like, we just want to know if the person was okay, or if they survived, or if we're going to, or if they've gotten treatment for addictions and mental health. Like, most people want to feel like what we are spending enormous amounts of money on in terms of supporting people with safer supply, harm reduction, and complex care. We want to know if it's working. And we also know that there's not nearly enough of it available. And so, like, we're seeing out on the streets the catastrophe of suffering and the damage that it's causing to businesses, residents, and just everybody's mental health. And yet the response from at least the province is like,
Stay the course.
stay the course. Like, it's not good enough. Like, whatever it is that Bonnie Henry had to say to a bunch of people in Vancouver today about, we just need to be patient and we need to not, like, we need to keep going down this path. Straight up, not good enough. Not good enough. Like, we need, like, it's become so ridiculous that for all of the crises that we are facing in British Columbia, and we say things like, it's all hands on deck, this is an emergency, this is a crisis, everybody's exhausted, and nobody knows what is and what isn't a crisis anymore, because it seems like everything is. But I tell you, what's happening right now in the downtowns of every city in our province, with the social disorder, the severe untreated mental illness and addictions, like, this is catastrophic. And
So walk me through a little bit of the anatomy of what one of those crises look like. So on Saturday, there was a fire, right?
yeah,
There was a fire, and before the fire, you were telling me earlier that the residents were aware of the fire at the time that it started, because they saw some folks sort of running away. We don't yet know what caused the fire. We don't know whether it was arson or an accident or misadventure. But what happens when something like that happens? What comes into play in the city of Nanaimo? We know fire comes. We know the city's crisis intervention comes. What happens to those people who are displaced? Where do they go? Where are they? What can we do?
so right now, some people have family in town or nearby or in another city that they've gone to stay with. Some people have been put up in hotels in the city, and in those instances, it's like, it's an insurance claim, and so
That's
they
insurance of the apartment building or tenant insurance?
either tenant insurance or homeowner insurance, depending on. So I know one individual who I spoke with the other day has a $500 deductible, so has to spend at least 3 nights on their own dime before the insurance money starts to pay for their accommodation. I don't know to what extent the city will provide relief or the province will provide relief.
Well, we're in a housing crisis, so it
Yeah.
is. These are folks who are out of their homes for a year. I think that's what we've been told.
So a number of them will be out for a year, depending on the scope and scale of the damage. There's a lot of, like, there's obviously structural damage. Some of the apartments are complete, like condos completely need to be redone. Some have major smoke damage and major water damage, and some have minor smoke damage and major water damage because the sprinklers came on. So it's going to be like varying degrees of being displaced. But yeah, so yeah, we're in a housing crisis. I mean, I think the fear now is that it's possible that if somebody doesn't have family to live with, in the medium term, the concern would be that if the money runs out, they'll be living in their car.
Yeah.
So, like, this is like, it's just why this particular situation, this particular incident is so maddening is because, for what feels like years, at least several months, and especially this summer, with the number of fires that have been lit by people smoking drugs or in some kind of psychosis, is shocking. And we've been pleading, begging, every possible tactic you can think of to get to get our governments to do something to make this better, to ease this. And it's just be patient. This is just anecdotal. You're creating hate and division. Like, stop it. Like, we're not children. And we're, anyway, sorry, we're just.
No, I look, this is a really painful topic, and it's hard. But what I was going to follow up on is, of course, today is September 18th. And so today was the first day where the BC government took its first tiny step back from this.
Mm-hmm.
So as of today, in theory, you can't do drugs on playgrounds. You can't do drugs. There are sort of these small islands of restriction carved out. So, does anybody think this is going to make a difference? Like, do we think that our RCMP has the ability to enforce this? How, other than, maybe having an officer attend and asking somebody to move along, does this give you any hope?
I mean, it's a very, very small indication that they realize that this isn't going swimmingly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it will give the bylaw and RCMP opportunities to get people to move along, but the distance that they've set, 15 meters from the edge of a playground structure or wading pool or whatever, it will do nothing in places like Matteo Sutton Park, Nob Hill. It will do nothing in Bowen Park. I mean, it's a gesture, but in practice, it literally does nothing, because most people that are openly using in public spaces aren't 15 meters from a play structure. They're usually hanging out in the bushes or on the hills, or kind of they're not going down the slide doing drugs.
Fair, but is it a sign that the pressure that we've been putting on and that ordinary citizens are starting to make a difference? Like, should we? I'm a little bit encouraged from it. I feel like we've held a whole bunch of rallies in Nanaimo. There have been letters written, and there have been news stories and conversations, even conversations like this, where we're talking about the issues, we're shining a light on the things that are happening in our communities, we're talking about not feeling safe. And by the way, it's not just us who aren't feeling safe. I mean, there are vulnerable people on the street who are also who are also unsafe because of some of the elements that are around them. Like, by no stretch, like, many of the people that are on the street or who are sleeping in their cars are folks who simply can't afford housing, and are trying really hard to stay out of that rabbit hole of mental health and addictions. And they're vulnerable to sort of people who are under the influence as well. And in many cases, we've actually lost capacity to be able to take care of themselves. I mean, it's you can light a fire under a car just as easily or next to a car just as easily as anywhere else.
Yeah. So
smoke detectors in there, right?
Yeah,
if you get a car in a parking lot, there's no smoke detector.
Yeah. I mean, it's harder to light a car on fire. But yeah, I mean, I get your point. And it is, like I said, I mean, we shouldn't, it seems kind of silly that it's taken this much effort to get this.
There.
Like, that's your olive branch. Like, that's what you think is, I mean, they better not think that's enough. Because if they do, they've got another thing coming. But yes, you're right. you got to take the small win, small victory, and give you some encouragement to keep going. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that everybody is grappling with this, but the types of incidents that are putting people at risk, especially all these ones that aren't making the news. Remember, so much of it does not make the news, and that is one of the things that is so deeply disturbing about all of this, because every time, like, the longer this goes on, the bigger and more severe incident is required to meet that threshold of being newsworthy. And I mean, we could literally talk here for days about.
Oh, no, we could talk about burning porta potties, toy bows and arrows with syringes on the end.
People not realizing it, but ending up with drug dealers renting their Airbnb.
Yeah.
And then not being able to get rid of them until the police come, and then they vandalize the place on their way out.
Yeah.
Like, all of those costs, all of that trauma that is being inflicted on regular people because of what is clear. Like, there's the mental health and addictions element. There is also a very, very bad element in this town when it comes to criminal drug trafficking. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's one of the things about legalization that about decriminalization that a lot of people forget is it's not the same as legalization. So they've decriminalized possession of drugs, but the trafficking of drugs is still illegal. And the drugs that are being consumed in BC are all still illegal drugs. And so those are coming from somewhere. And so instead of, I mean, it sometimes feels like instead of cracking down on drug dealers and drug traffickers, we're giving them a market.
We're making it easier for them we are making it easier for people that do have criminal intent. Like, let's be honest, there are people that are doing and dealing drugs with criminal intent.
Always. I mean, that is
and they are now able to do more of that with less consequence and a higher threshold for the law enforcement to be able to intervene early. So now the aspect of the decriminalization that really concerns me is not the stigma associate, like the destigmatization. Like, I get it. I get, like, if somebody is struggling with a mental health issue and an addiction that they are worried about coming forward with to their loved ones or to their, to the people that can help. Obviously, you don't want to be punishing those people, but the unintended consequence of it is now that you have this increased risk to your frontline officers, because now they can't just go after the street level dealers. They can't just go after somebody, and say, like, where'd you get that? Who'd you get it from? Take me to your dealer or whatever. They can't do that. Now they have to go after the next rung up in the criminal enterprise, which carries inherently more risk bodily harm to the officers.
It's, as I hear you talk about this, I think, isn't this really a failure of government and a failure of government coordination? Like, what we really need in Nanaimo is a plan. And what we have instead is we have a situation where, criminal law is federal. Housing is provincial. Mental health, or housing is partially provincial and partially federal. Mental health, some federal elements, some provincial elements. All of these issues, all of these really complex societal issues really require a plan. and they require different levels of government to work together and to work together towards a common goal. And what it feels like, and I am, full disclosure, I am reading Kennedy Stewart's new book on decriminalization, which talks about how they accomplish decriminalization. And, I can't help but think the folks who were behind decriminalization had a plan. And they had a highly organized, highly sophisticated group of organizations that worked really hard and managed to affect significant policy change in British Columbia and in Canada through decrim. And we're just sort of left kind of gobsmacked trying to pick up the pieces of that and trying to figure out how to move forward and how to deal with the consequences of that in our communities and for our families and our province.
Yeah. I mean, there was it earlier? Well, you said you need a plan and you need people to work together. Yes. The other thing about, a plan is only as good as its implementation, right? Like you can plan till the cows come home. And if you don't actually do what the plan says you're going to do, then it's not worth the paper it was written on. And so, and then see, and that's where all this falls apart, I find, in different levels of government working together. Because then that's when you bring in the politics and the games that like these you have people that will wield political power or influence at the expense of the people who have to deal with the consequences.
But Colin, I gotta stop you there, because this is one of the things that totally baffles me about this, right? We have a member of parliament who's NDP.
Yeah. We
have MLAs everywhere who are NDP, except for Adam Walker, who has, just been expelled from the NDP caucus.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a mayor who is a former NDP MLA, right? Like these are, when you join, and just to put this into perspective, like when you join the provincial NDP or the federal NDP, you're joining the other one. Like they share their list, they share their data. It is sort of one party across the nation. And yet, the city of Nanaimo, when the Nandu tents popped out, the city of Nanaimo, not popped up rather, the city of Nanaimo spent a whole whack of time trying to figure out who was funding it, only to find out that it was in fact the province that was funding it. And then, once it was there with all the consequences that operation had on downtown in terms of, crime and disorder and really a feeling of lack of safety, the only thing that Nanaimo City Council could do is declare that property a nuisance, which if you're trying to reduce stigma, that was just a lose situation.
Yeah.
And so we have sort of, in theory, we have this unity of government in Nanaimo. Why isn't it working? Why are they not working together?
Oh, well, again, I guess we could talk for
no, I mean, and the question's a little bit rhetorical.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what is it? Earlier today, I heard was it on, I think, one of the political commentators on the Mike Smith show or something. He said, the federal government has all the money, the province has all the power, and the municipalities have all the problems. Right.
Or the way that I frame this on a regular basis is like, you need a PhD in the British North America Act to get anything done in this country, because you need federal money, you need provincial money and provincial operational expertise, and you need municipal buy-in.
Yeah.
Because the municipalities really are the closest to the ground. They really do understand. Municipal councillors really do have an understanding of what's going on in their communities. And I feel like there's a real lack of leadership around, really having you know, having people sort of having somebody drive this, like
Yeah.
where's the plan? How many beds do we need in Nanaimo? Like we know we need involuntary care, voluntary care, and probably a transition housing, because, you know, if you really want to break the cycle of this, you need acute care, chronic care, recovery, post-recovery, and you
Mhm.
also need the prevention stuff that will help on
Yeah.
the front end, and
And
frankly, on the
and at
post-recovery
the
stuff.
same time, you need to deal with you also need to deal with the criminal aspect, like at a large scale. Like I'm not talking about people that are victimized by criminals. I'm talking about the criminals. Um, the in the
And the thing about that is that
sorry, what I wanted to say about your point about, you know, the plan, whatever. So in the province last year, November 1st, 2022, the provincial government came out with the select standing committee on health, and it was on the provincial response to the opioid and toxic drug overdose crisis. They had 37 recommendations, 10 pages, 10 to 13 are all recommendations that are all categorized into different, you know, sections: prevention, education, law enforcement, harm reduction, safe supply, all of it, treatment, all of it. And they put out an announcement and then nothing. And what has happened? Like, so it's been almost a year, and I went through that list of 37 recommendations, and I look at this a lot. I'm trying to get information out of our province. I'm trying to get information out of the press, and I look up on government websites and talk to people, and I cannot for the life of me figure out whether they've made progress on, like, significant progress that they would say job well done on any of them. A single one. And it was bipartisan. Everybody signed off on it. It was released. The taxpayers paid for this report, and it paid for them to say what recommendations need to be implemented. And where's the implementation? Like, what's happened?
Where are the beds? Where are the beds? Where are the treatment centers? Where are the therapeutic communities? Why aren't they filling the vacancies in the RCMP and in the public prosecution service? Like, where are the nurses?
Yeah, all of it. I mean, and this is like, it's a lack of, like, the lack of coordination, like you said, you know, it's the lack of coordination, not even being able to anticipate, like, 5 feet in front of your face, um in terms of how to deal with the implementation of these kinds of plans. Like, it's astonishing that we have these public institutions and public services that are so large with so many people, and it seems like tax dollars goes in and virtually nothing comes out.
So we're probably just about out of time, but I wanted to ask you about one more thing. I wanted to chat with one more thing about you, which is with you, which is this bus loop. So we were at a rally, I don't know, several months ago,
Mhm.
around the bus exchange, and there has been, you know, very clear sentiment from business owners and residents of downtown, particularly those that are near Victoria Crescent, where where, you know, the feedback's been really clear that it's not something that folks want. And we were told, like, city staff told the media and told everyone that that they hadn't decided on a site yet, that it was going to be conditional on getting funding. And now here we are today, and an announcement has been made. And that announcement is that the bus loop is going exactly where folks did not want it to go. And I remember just quoting from the article at the time, someone, one of the folks downtown who is associated with the Victoria Crescent Association. I'm not going to use a name because I don't want to implicate anybody, but what the person said was, I love the movie Mad Max, but to live it in real life is scary. You see people walking around with weapons. It's literally, does that guy have a trident? Yes, he does have a trident. That guy has a baseball bat with nails in it. Yeah, it's frightening. And I don't want that near our businesses here. Victoria Crescent has dealt with enough over the past couple of years. We do not need the bus loop here. And I think there was also concern about, from people who have experience working in the social service sector in Nanaimo, that people who are unhoused and can't access resources tend to be the ones who gather in public spaces like transit exchanges, because bus shelters are at least shelters. And what that sets up is it sets up this real clash of rights and use of space, because there are folks in this town who need to, lots of folks need to take the bus to get to work, and they don't have any choice but to use the bus shelters. And it's also unsafe for people who are vulnerable and unhoused down there. So, where are we at with this? And is there anything that people can do at this point? Like, is this a done deal?
So I don't know whether it sounds like it's a done deal. I will say that this is a case in point of a government at the municipal level, and it may not be just the council, mayor and council. It may be like unelected people inside that are heads of some departments that are making these decisions. But this is case in point of a government not listening to its citizens. Like they hired consultants probably from out of town that don't understand the nature of the issues and the safety risks in the city. They accepted provincial money. They basically, the province dangled this over the city and said, if you want this money, it's going to go to a bus shelter or a bus exchange here. And so they're sort of holding the city hostage. But the business owners and the residents downtown, as soon as it became even a discussion about where the location of where it could be, which is right in behind the Queens on Terminal, immediately the first reaction was, that's not safe. Like, that's not a safe location for it, because we're already under siege from the severe social disorder that we're experiencing. And we already know that putting the series of bus shelters and a washroom or whatever it is that they're planning there will be an attractant. If it wasn't, like, if we had better wellness as a community in the downtown, then it would not be a problem. But we don't. And because of that, that's why that location is so problematic. And it really, like, whenever you do advocacy work and you go to rallies, you never know if it's going to work. But at it was a clear betrayal of the good faith trust that the people that live and have a stake in the businesses and the residences and buildings downtown Nanaimo. There's a clear betrayal of their good faith in listening to them. They did not listen to them. They said they listened to them. They kind of patted them on the back and say, yeah, we hear you. And then they didn't. And so, at the end of all that, to have this announcement come out and say that's where they're going to do it, it's like, okay, guys, so the next time and the first time that somebody gets stabbed in one of those shelters in that bus exchange, it's on them, because the public told them. The public told the city that this is not safe, and you didn't listen.
And I think I mean, I think the message has been, we need beds, not bus shelters. We need real housing. We need massive housing. We need affordable housing and housing across the spectrum.
The province doesn't have $2 million or however much money they're giving for this special. The province doesn't have that money for a bus shelter or a bus exchange. What the province has that money for is to deal with these crises. They should be allocating all of that money into treatment beds, into affordable housing. Every single dime. Like a bus exchange at a time like this? Are you kidding me? Like, this is the sort of nonsense that we do our best, but I mean, like, it's like screaming into a hurricane. And the level, I mean, it just boggles the mind that these kinds of decisions can be made that are clearly not in the interests of what is needed in the community. And they do it anyway. For what? Like, I don't understand. Like, some contractor is going to get a massive payday for a design build. A bunch of consultants got a bunch of money. The city planners had something to do. But like, these are not, like, this is not appropriate given the times that we're living in right now. Anyway.
So I think we're gonna leave it there. It's definitely, I can empathize with just the struggle. I mean, Nanaimo is a really difficult place right now, and I really want to work on a plan. I want us to be figuring out how to solve this. I would really like our politicians to get to the point where we're figuring out how to solve this instead of, telling us that we should just stay the course. Yeah. If folks at home who are watching this want to help with that effort, please go follow Island Safety Watch, tell your friends about it, and get active in your community. Write to your MLAs, write to your MP, write to your city councilors, and tell them how you feel about what's going on. We're starting to see that is having an impact, not enough of an impact, but we saw with today's move to at least protect a little part of our playgrounds, that there is that what we're doing is making a difference and it matters. And so join us, Island Safety Watch on Facebook. There's also the Nanaimo Area Public Safety Association. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back.
Thank you very much, Tamara, for all that. Yeah. Good night, everybody.